as well as the climate change parts. Okay, so first we'll begin with the first question. Discuss about the national mission for sustaining the Himalayan ecosystem. So this is a straightforward question where we are going to discuss about a particular project which has been initiated to protect the Himalayan ecosystem. Okay, so if the question comes like this, how you have to answer this question? So mainly like we have to start why this mission has been formed and what is the objective of it, right? So like that we have to view in detail discussion about this project. So the primary objective of the mission, as you can see, is to mainly to bring a sustainable national capacity to continuously assess the health status of the Himalayan ecosystem. Okay, so mainly the Himalayas has been affected due to climate change. We are seeing a lot of issues raised due to the climate change. Okay, the changes of temperatures and the increasing global warming, and because of this, the melting of glaciers. All these have been affected the Himalayan ecosystem, and eventually it affects the biodiversity also. So that's why we have formed this particular mission mainly to continuously monitor the health status of the Himalayan ranges, that is ecosystems. Okay, and also with the help of those details, we are going to help the policy makers to make certain policies to support and protect this Himalayan region. Okay, so in that way we can bring a sustainable development. So this is the main objective of this particular. Sorry, am I audible? Can you hear me, or all of you can you hear me? Maybe I can try with some other device also. I think the voices are very low. Is it audible now? So am I audible? Maybe like we can check. So I'll keep discussing. So if my voice is not here, please let me know. Okay. So let me check once also. Yes, can you all hear me? Okay, fine. It's fine then. Huh? So now we'll continue from where we have left. As I have already said, so this is happening. This particular program is checking over the health status of the Himalayan states, that Himalayan ecosystem itself. So this is formed as one of the 8 missions under the National Action Plan on Climate Change. It's a complete plan to act against the climate change. And that one mission is this NMSH. Okay, so this is if you see this multi-pronged cross-cutting mission, which is staked across various sectors will be involved into it. So that's why we can see the Department of Science and Technology, okay, is coordinating and implementing this particular program. And there is a particular cell which is also there, that is called as the NMSH cell, which will be set up at the Climate Change Program Division of the Departments of Science and Technologies. Okay, and then you can see that these are some of the major issues focused by this particular mission. So what is the main aim of this mission? So when you are framing an answer for these kind of questions, when you are trying to frame an answer for these kind of questions, first you have to begin like what is this mission about? And so how it is introduced as a program, as one of the 8 missions of the Climate Action Plan, and then you have to come out with the aim of this particular program, then objectives. Like this we have to focus on by one, right? So I think the voice is not audible because I'm getting messages. Let me check over it. Is it audible now? Is it audible? Is it audible? Maybe there's some problem in the mic or something. Just a minute. with the straightforward question, that is a national mission for sustaining the Himalayan ecosystem. Since a year-wise classification, and we expect that there might be a possibility of asking this. So I just framed this. Or any other mission which is to be asked to you, how you have to answer for those types of questions. Any other programs or plans or schemes which is asked under the any topic. Okay, it might be a climate change, it might be any ecosystem related topics also, you have to be prepared well. So how you will be beginning these types of questions, you have to start with when this mission has been launched, and some details, little bit detail about this mission has to be there in one or two statements, and who's coordinating this mission. These types of information you can give. Okay, question, that's a national mission process and aim of this mission. So why this mission was formed? What is the main aim? Main aim is to check the health status of the Himalayan ecosystem. As in what way they are monitoring the ecosystem completely, and mainly they are watching for the recession of the glaciers. As we told, the climate change is impacting and it is trying to destroy the health of the ecosystem by reducing the glaciers. By reducing the glaciers, Himalayan glaciers, okay, it is making it to recede. So you can see this and how it impacts the river system, the flow of water in the river system. Okay, and sometimes short term it increases the flow, and longer term it is going to deplete the water resource completely. And as we know that South is completely affected because of this, they were depending on the rain, that is monsoon fed rivers were there. So, but it is not the case with respect to North India, especially the Himalayan states, where the glaciers are the main source of this, and that why we call these a perennial rivers. So mainly the receding glaciers is going to affect the flow of water in the river system. Okay, so that was the main aim of the scheme, in order to watch the health of the Himalayan ecosystem. Okay, they are going to monitor and help the policymakers to by giving data in order to frame new policies also. Okay, so that's why you can see they also try to do establishing observational on monitoring network, okay, to assess ecosystem health, including the freshwater systems. They will be doing this. So, and also the community based management, not only watching that health, that means monitoring the health, then framing a policy. So till that, they are not going to end this. This program will also go further and involve the community, okay, in protecting the Himalayan ecosystem, right? For the protection and enhancement of the forested lands, and also regional cooperation through established mechanisms for exchanging information with the countries which shares the Himalayan ecology. Okay, so in that way, every angle, we are going to enhance the cover of Himalayas, that is the health cover of Himalayas. Either way, we are going to focus on the forest lands as well as the water bodies. How we are going to do it? By monitoring the health status. That is the main aim. And while monitoring, we also will give this data. We are collecting data. So we give this data to various policy makers in order to frame policies in such a way to enhance the Himalayan ecosystem. And that's why even Department of Science and Technology is coordinating this program. And while that's because mainly it is monitoring the status, health status. Okay, so once monitored, what we are going to do, we are also going to engage the community in protecting this Himalayan ecosystem, as well as also to exchange information with the neighboring countries which shares this Himalayas, So in that way, we can get better idea like what is the problem which is going on, as well as then we can also provide them with certain information. Jointly, we can protect. This is something called as cross-border environmentalism. We call this as cross-border environmentalism, where 2 or 3 countries which shares a common issue will come together and fight for the protection. Okay, so in this way, everything is covered under this program. And mainly this is addressing issues like the receding Himalayan glaciers, okay, and the associated hydrological consequences. As we know, temporarily flood will happen, then drought will happen. So all this will be focused. Prediction and management of natural hazards. Okay, using certain technologies, they will try to predict and manage the natural hazards. Then biodiversity conservation and protection, because once that Himalayas health is completely altered and it is affected, what will happen? when the climate is completely changing the flow of water level, and even there is no water, it is dried out completely, there is drought which is prevailing, then what happens, the biodiversity will get completely affected. The unique biodiversity which thrives in that area, even the endemic species are the first to get affected. So this way we have to focus on the biodiversity conservation and protection also. That is wildlife conservation protection, and even traditional knowledge societies have to be engaged here, and their lively capacity and regular regulation of science and critical peer evaluation, all these you can see, read. Okay, so next thing, the objective. So while writing a question like this, first we have to begin with the details of the scheme. Then we have to give like what are the aim related to this scheme, particularly why the scheme has been formed. Then what are the objectives? So objectives are these things like collecting and documenting all the knowledge. Okay, and with respect to the formal, within the formal and the non-formal sectors, and building of institutional human capacities to observe, okay, assess changes in ecosystem along with the correlations of likely cause. Okay, so the main thing is to build the institutions and human capacities, training them. Now, how they will come and collect the information. First, we have to train that. So, in that way, we are bringing manpower also, training, giving capacity building also for them. And then providing, after collecting this information, you're providing it for policy making. And also, see this establishment of a state of art National Center for Himalayan Glaciology will mainly for doing research. We are trying to establish this center, and also assistance. It is this particular scheme is providing assistance to Ministry of Environment. MOEF is there, no, mainly for policy formulations only. Okay, and also assistance to states. All the states which are lying in the Himalayan region will be given assistance, and they will act along with the coordination efforts from this particular program. Okay, so this is the shortest data about this program. That's it. This much is more than sufficient. So when a program is asked, it will be very good that you need not expand it as much as possible. Just keep it short and simple, but at the same time, try to express the objectives for which the scheme is formed, and as well as what it targets, what is the aim of the scheme. This too has to be present. Okay, now come to the next question. What is biosphere reserve? Discuss how biosphere reserves are different from protected areas such as national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. This is another question. So, as you know, this also is a straightforward question only. There is nothing, indirect here. So, they were asking directly what is biosphere reserve. So, first you have to explain about biosphere reserve. Then they have asked a question like how this biosphere reserves are different from the other protected areas like national parks you take, wildlife sanctuaries you take. So how it is different from these? Okay, so first we have to give some information related to biosphere reserve. As you see, biosphere reserves, we all know we would have drawn a diagram. So when you think of biosphere reserve, automatically which comes into our mind is a diagram of core area, buffer area, and transitional zone. All this will come. But first we have to know what is biosphere reserve. They are simply a site which has been formed, which has been announced in order to bring protection, in order to bring conservation along with the local people involvement. So that's the main aim of biosphere reserve. So that's why we say that both the people and the nature cannot be separated from one another. So they have to coexist with one another. So without people, your nature cannot exist, and without nature, people cannot exist. So in that way, they are trying to respect each other need. So that is something called as biosphere reserve. So this word has to be there. If they ask biosphere reserves, this particular statement should be present there. Okay, and mainly to conserve the biodiversity as well as to support the economic and the social development, and also the maintenance of cultural values, which is present already there. We are having this biosphere reserve. So how this biosphere reserve was designated? It's given by an international body called UNESCO, and it keeps all the parts related to natural cultural landscapes, okay, which expands to a particular area, or if it is combined of two also, we call this as biosphere reserve. And this biosphere reserve was proposed around the year 1973 to 74 under a program called Man and Biosphere Reserve program. So from the name itself, we can know that man and the nature will coexist here. And these sites are established by the countries only, okay, and will be recognized under the UNESCO's MAM program. And from because of this, what they will try to do, they try to promote sustainable development along with local community efforts. That's the main idea behind this biosphere resource. So, as we said, around 1973. So, this was launched in 1970s by UNESCO, and then mainly it aims to develop a natural and social sciences basis for the rational use, conservation of the resource of the biosphere, and for the improving relationship between man and the environment to predict the consequences of today's actions on the tomorrow's world. So mainly we said no sustainable development. That's a aim. For sustainable development, we are bringing man and environment together. Okay, so that's why we are also saying that today's actions on tomorrow's world, and thereby increasing man's ability to manage the natural resources in an efficient way. That is why we call this a sustainable development, right? And as we can see that it involves local communities. So there are three main functions related to biosphere resource. So what are those? First is conservation. As we all know, conserving the biodiversity as well as the cultural diversity which is prevailing in a particular area. That's the aim of biosphere. It's a main function of biosphere reserve. Along with this, economic development. So not only conserving the biodiversity, not only protecting the animal. For that, we have national park, we have wildlife sanctuaries. So, but this biosphere reserve is going a part ahead, far, ahead of these protected areas, and they're going to bring economic development also. Okay, for the people who are there, so that socio-culturally, environment sustainably, economic development should take place, and also the logistic support. Okay, this like research, monitoring, education, training, all this will be regulated. In one area, you can conduct research. Like core area, research alone is allowed. None other than that can be engaged. But like this, it goes on. The buffer area and then transition zone. Like this, we have three. See, this natural or core zone is one such zone. And then the buffer zone as well as the transition zone. Okay. So now, if we see that this is a diagram which you can also draw in the exam. If this is asked, you can draw this diagram. And you can mention the core zone, which you can notice here, the green in color area. So here it is given highest protection. Okay, so people are not allowed to live inside, first of all. They're not allowed to engage in any economic activities inside. Okay, so completely it is devoid of human activity. Yes, except certain research activities which can be taken place in the core zone. Okay, research activities will be conducted. Then comes the buffer zone. This is the buffer zone you can see. So in the buffer zone, if what are the activities which can be where people can engage along with the research activities, the a few kind of training programs can also be taken place, as well as tourism related activities and all will be allowed, permitted in this area. Then comes the last one, as you can see, the transition zone. Here, all the activities like tourism, research, okay, education and training, as well as human settlements, all will take place in this area. So these are the three areas as we can see. And the core area is the main area, so it's completely protected, strictly protected zone. And because here only we have got highest protection and conservation of the ecosystems and the genetic variations. Then comes buffer zone. It's nearby the core area. So the activities which are ecological in character will be permitted, like research, even training activities, okay, monitoring the ecosystem health. Like this, all will be permitted in the buffer zone. But the transition area, as you can see, so here, all the communities, the local people, the forest dwellers previously would have been settled here. Transition area, they will be allowed to settle. And normal human activities, economic activities, all will take place. So that's a transition zone. But again, it should be a sustainable activity. Okay, so how we are selecting this biosphere reserve, that can be a small point which you can give. So generally, if you're going to write what is biosphere reserve means, first you have to begin with what is this called as biosphere reserve, defining that. Then how this program was announced, who is the body who is taking care of this biosphere reserve, it has to be like that. Then a third thing we can give is that the three areas, no, when we are talking about a biosphere reserve, we will be talking about core area, buffer area, and the transition zone. In this way, we'll be checking with the three areas. And that finally, like when well, if you want to extend it, if there is a separate question like about biosphere reserve only, then what and all you can give. For that, you have to begin with how that biosphere reserves are selected, the criteria for selection of biosphere reserves. That can be also added. The primary criteria, the secondary criteria, all these things. So that means a site that must contain, the site has to be completely protected, and it should be a minimally disturbed area. Okay, especially we have to conserve the species which is present in that area. That type of area will be first considered to be selected as a biosphere reserve. Okay, and the secondary criteria, if you see, if that area has a rare and endangered species, or any diversity of some soil conditions or microclimatic conditions is prevailing in that particular area, or even there is a particular indigenous species which is present there. Okay, so that type of sites will be considered for the biosphere reserve. How we are designating the biosphere reserve? So as we see that this initiative, first we will be what we will do, first we will study that area, whether it is able, whether we can assign the area as a biosphere reserve or not. Okay, then the land and the forest will be coming under the state. So the state governments have to designate the identified area as a biosphere reserve. So, but the management, the state government is designating it, but the management of biosphere reserve is the responsibility of the concerned state and union territory, with the support from the central government. Like financial assistance will be given, technical assistance will be given, even training facilities for the staff will be given by the central government. But who is managing? The state government. Who is designating? The state government. So you need not give this much big points. You can just write in a single statement that the biosphere reserves are identified and then studied first of all, and it is proposed, and the state government has to designate this biosphere reserve, and even manage the biosphere reserve with the help of central government's assistance, aid. Okay, like financial aid can be, or technical aid. And now come to the next part of the question. So the second question is that, see the second question. Discuss how biosphere reserves are different from protected areas such as national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. That's the second question. Okay. How it is different from national parks and wildlife sanctuaries? In that case, we can say that this particular biosphere reserves, mainly we are designating it not to replace any protected areas. Generally, in order to go as a supplementary program, a supplementary protected areas, in order to work along with the other protected areas only. Okay, but there is a difference between the other protected areas and a biosphere reserve. So what are that? That only we are going to discuss. How it is different from other protected areas. Here, if you see, the conservation of complete biodiversity and landscape will be given rather than some specific species. If you take a national park or a wildlife sanctuary, sometimes in order to protect a single species which is present in that area, we will designate that area as a national park and wildlife sanctuary. But in this case, in the biosphere reserve, completely, if you are designating an area as a biosphere reserve, the entire area will be under protection. Okay, so even the landscape will be protected. Complete animals and small species which is present in that area will be taken care of. That is the first big difference. Okay, so that's why we call all those things as components of biosphere resource. Like you take landscape, you take a species, you take race, any race which is there. Okay, so any habitat, any place where that animals is residing, all this will be coming under the protection. Along with this, we are also focusing on developmental activity. We already don't know sustainable development. So developmental activities, and also we will be mitigating the conflict which is occurring between development and conservation. Because one time in UPSC also they asked a question that without environment concerns, development cannot take place. Suppose if you're conserving, giving importance to environmental conservation, development will be stalled.
So in that way, there was a question which focused on that. Even environmental impact assessment, which they are asking questions in the mains and all, was mainly focused in this area only. That is development without affecting the environment. So that kind of development only we are asking environment friendly development or sustainable development. So for that cases and all, this biosphere reserve is a very good point which you can mention under that type of questions when they are asking that how we can do development without environmental degradation. So suggest measures like related to that. If the questions are coming in that way, you can use biosphere reserve as one of the point which you can use there. Okay, because in the protected areas like national parks, wildlife sanctuaries and all, many activities is restricted. They are not allowed. But in case of this particular biosphere reserve, developmental activities also will take place, and there will be proper conflict management between the development and protection. Okay, so then even we are trying to increase the stakeholders base. How we are bringing in local people participation and training them. No, we are giving training to them. Already they are trained. They do have traditional knowledge, but we are giving other supporting training also to these people and involving them in the protection of the species. Okay, but in the case of wildlife sanctuary and national parks, we will not do that. And that's already we have discussed these types of points. Environment friendly development will be taking place, and also the coordination between different developmental organization and agency will also happen. Okay, and also last is research and monitoring, right, to understand the structure and functioning of ecological system, the mode of reaction when exposed to human intervention. All this will take place, right? So then come to the third question. So that's the second question. We are talking about the biosphere reserve. That's it. So it's a very simple question only. I thought of giving this particular, program for you because you might have not heard about this. That is other effective area based conservation measure. This is something called as OECM site. We call it as OECM site. So I thought of bringing this for your knowledge. So I made a question. So what is this? We have to explain that what is called as OECM. That's it. So if you see this OECM is a tag which is provided by a particular organization. The organization called IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, is providing this tag and to certain sites, to certain location. Okay, why they are giving this tag? Not to the site which is protected, which is not only protected. Okay, but also they should be rich in biodiversity. They should contain lot of animals and plant species in the particular area. So in that way, if they find that area is rich in species, then the OECM tag is provided to the area. So they are defining this particular OECM, that is other effective conservation measure, as any geographical area. Other than any protected area like national parks you take, wildlife sanctuaries you take. Other than that, if there is any geographical area which is governed and managed in such a way that it will bring a positive and sustained long-term outcomes for the in situ conservation of biodiversity. Not ex situ, in situ conservation of biodiversity. That is within that site. The biodiversities which are present should be protected. Okay, so along with the ecosystem functions provided by that biodiversities and the ecosystem, and where they are applicable, spiritual, socio-economic, and other locally relevant values should be provided. So those sites which are not only protected but also rich in biodiversity. That means not only protected sites can be declared under the OECM site, but those sites where they have rich biodiversity can be designated. So in that case, we can say that in longer term, we can bring this particular site also under in situ conservation of biodiversity. So how we are going to declare a site as OECM site? For that, if you see, there are three types of conservation measures. Primary conservation will be saying, secondary conservation and ancillary conservation. So in case of primary conservation, that particular site has to meet all the elements of the IUCN definition. Okay, of protected area. That means IUCN has defined in its sites has provided a definition for a protected area. So it has to satisfy that definition. But this is not recognized officially as a protected area at all. Still, it is satisfying the condition of protected area, but it's not a protected area. Okay. So has not been designated as a protected. That's why I told you those sites which are not even designated as a protected area, but is rich in biodiversity. Na? So that will be considered under OECM site. So we are saying that all which are not officially recognized as a protected area by the relevant national governments or any local authority, which is not designated that particular area as a protected area, but it also meets the definition of the protected area given by IUCN. That is OECM. So secondary conservation. In the case of secondary conservation, will be achieved through the conservation of an area where conservation outcomes are a secondary management objective. Like you take some watershed protection we are taking. Okay, that means we are protecting a area. Because of that, okay, the areas which are nearby, we can say that. So that's why we are saying a secondary conservation is achieved through the active conservation of an area where conservation outcomes are a secondary management objective. That means they are doing some development in the area. Along with that, management, that is conservation is also a part of, it's coming as a outcome when we are trying to do, conservation of a particular area where conservation outcomes are coming as a secondary objective of that particular site. That means some military reserves we have seen. No, so the actual ambition is not to protect that area, but conservation is a secondary objective which comes out of it like that. Now, ancillary conservation, as you see in the OECM, it is a byproduct of management activities. That's it. Okay, so it's not completely a management objective, but it is a byproduct of management activities. Like when they are trying to manage a particular site, in that a part of the management of that particular site is also conservation. Okay, so maybe there is some other for some other purpose they would have established that site, but it ultimately ends in conservation of the site also. That is something called as ancillary conservation. So these three types of conservation will be ongoing in that particular OECM site. That kind of site only we are declaring as OECM site, where it is not accepted as a protected area by any government or local authority, but on the same hand, that the area consists of biodiversity, which is kind of protected area, satisfying a protected area definition, and that type of areas we are declaring as OECM site. Some, as you can see, these are examples we have given for OECM sites. So what can be declared as a OECM site or counted as a OECM site? Some indigenously conserved areas like sacred groves you take. Okay, so they have their private forests. They are protecting the instead in the process of worshipping a god, they are declaring that particular area as a sacred grove, and the main objective is not to protect or conserve the environment. The main objective is to carry through forward the cultural values of that particular and traditional values, like worshipping a god. Then in that process, they will never try to harm any plant or animal which is present in the particular area. So conservation is also taking place. So that's why we are saying some indigenous or community conserved areas, and even some areas which are there in the production landscapes. Okay, then like ecosystem restoration area, we can say some watershed protection areas, some community pasture areas. All this can be a OECM site. Okay, then come to the next last section of this OECM. It also includes identification of the range of biodiversity attributes for which the site is considered important. Okay, so that like it may include a rare or a threatened or an endangered species. So then that can also be declared as a OECM site. Okay, see this, the Aravalli Biodiversity Park is declared as the first OECM site in our country. Okay, then come to the next question. There have been serious concerns about unsafe handling of used electronics in developed countries, in developing country, that results in harm to human health and the environment. Illustrate. That's the first part of this question. Second part, can you discuss some of the management measures to tackle e-waste pollution? So either way, a question can be asked to you, or they can also mix this question and they can, ask you to answer in shortly, in briefly. They may ask, what is e-waste? And can you discuss some of the management measures to combat or tackle this e-waste pollution? This way, there might be a question. So in that case, you should know what is e-waste. So you can define an e-waste as an e-waste is an informal name which is provided to the discarded electronic parts and electrical parts, we can say, where their life is going to end, or sometimes it is simply dumped out. Okay, so we got a new product, we doesn't want to use the old one, we are dumping them. So in this way, mostly if you see, it is reaching the end of the life. So then we call them as e-waste. When they are left in the environment as such, okay, like the other waste, when they are put in the landfills or anyway, it is going to pose a serious damage to the environment. Okay, so how it happens, as you can see that this discarded that is electrical and electronic equipments. Okay, so what, without reusing it, they are discarded in the environment. Now, what are those materials which are discarded in that manner? Like you can say any cooling or any freezing equipments, starting from a refrigerator, freezers, to televisions, to laptops, to computers, to mobile phones. Okay, any type of home appliances also, like ACs you can take, or even a fluorescent lamp you can take. Okay, even a washing machine and a child toy can also be a e-waste because they are electricals. So, and there are some more list also, you can read it in the future. So these can be even a pocket calculator which you may carry is a e-waste only. Okay, so this way we can say these electronics which has been discarded, they will contain some valuable resources in them. Like you take gold, silver, copper, platinum, aluminum, cobalt, all these are valuable resources which is present in the e-waste. So what they do, they just dump it without retrieving that back. So they are not retrieved and they just are dumped there. So without recycling, they're throwing it away. Huh? Then what happens? That is a main attraction for the poor people to take this electronics with them. They just go and work in it, and then they try to extract these metals without proper safety gears. Okay, so that's the main problem. Once the discarded electronics is there lying, these people know that it contains valuable resources like gold, or silver, or copper, or platinum, aluminum is present inside. So they try to go and work on it, and they get exposed to the hazardous substances which are leaching out from the electronics. Okay, so that's the major problem. And some of the hazardous pollutants which comes out along with the valuable resources, we can say, are like mercury, starting from lead to mercury to nickel to cadmium to chromium, PCBs, PBBs, okay, polychlorinated biphenyls and polybrominated biphenyls, and like this it goes on. Huh? Even flame retardants, all this are coming out, leaching out from the particular substance. Okay, see this. So I said that this consists of some valuable resources along with the chemicals which is leaching out into the environment. So that for the mainly for the valuable resources, the children start, even the children are employed in this, the informal sector. Formal sector is totally different. Formal is not too developed. So we are always relying on the informal sectors, and informal sectors, lot of people who are poor and who are the vulnerable society, I can say, including children, without proper safety gears, they go and touch this electronics and they get exposed to the harmful substances like lead and mercury poisoning will takes place in their body. So that's why this diagram is given like a illustration, because they are asking to illustrate. You can also use this diagram or you can make your own diagram. Okay, so when you are going for e-waste handling or e-waste management, there are two sectors which is acting on it. One is a formal sector, another one is an informal sector. What formal sector will do? Formal sector is a proper way, is a proper sector which is engaged in handling of e-waste, managing the e-waste, like collecting, okay, recycling them, and then selling it in the market again. But in the informal sector, if you see, migration workers are asked to work like scavengers, like how the vulture is going and scavenging, they are doing scavenging. Okay, then they are collecting the materials, then they're sorting it. Formal is totally different. There is every equipment, safety gears for the people. okay, for recycling that material. But in the informal sector, there is no such thing. So the migrants and the poor people and the children, especially from the refugees, get employed in this informal sector. They act as a scavenger. They will bring the materials. They will sort it, whether it is working or whether it is not working. If it is working, the product will be refurbished back and it will be sold in the market. But if it's not working, what they will do, they will try to dismantle. This is a major worst part in that area of e-waste pollutant, and how it's affect the health of the people. So if it is not working, what they will do, they will try to dismantle the product. Okay. And who and all is included in this? The child, especially child is involved in it. They burn it or they treat it with acid. So this is what we call as acid bath or burning. And then they sell that extracted materials in the market. So this is something is very cruel. As we can see, this only attracts a lot of issues, like as we can say, the unsafe handling of the electronics and the e-waste, especially in developing countries, not in developed countries, but in developing countries, because the results is harming the human health and the environment. And apart from this, I told you how they are treating the metals by burning them. Then it will the gold or something will come out. So the metals will come out. So, or they will treat it with acid. So when they're doing open air burning, it is going to bring a lot of problems. Okay. And this valuable materials will be extracted from the electronic components. And due to this kind of treatment, where they're exposed to the burning as well as the acid. Okay. So a lot of toxic materials will also come out, will leach out in the environment. So this leads like lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenics, and which is going to bring in lot of irreversible health damage, I can say. We cannot change. Once it is cast, it's cast, including like cancer may happen, then miscarriages in the people, even the nerve damage. Okay, so all this are the result of this particular mishandling of e-waste only. So how you can, and the second part of this question, as you can see, can you discuss some of the management measures to tackle this e-waste pollution? So that is the question which is asked. The secondary part. Anna. So how you will tackle this e-waste pollutant or pollution? First solution is e-waste recycling. As you may ask a question that already we have discussed that e-waste recycling is also bringing a lot of health defect. No, that's a major cause. But formal e-waste recycling is important. Formally, it has to be conducted. So that's one of the sustainable solutions, because if you're leaving the product as such in the environment, people are going to get involved in it without proper safety gears. So it is important to the developing country and the health of the people are completely affected. Instead, there should be a formal sector, there should be a formal organization which collects this, okay, and then recycle it. So sustainable e-waste recycling is very, very important in order to bring a circular economy also, as we are saying about circular economy. So this recycling activities, if you go in the developed countries, are dominated by the formal activities, as I showed in the diagram. Formal activity in the developed countries under some controlled conditions in the lab. Some particular temperature, they will be protected completely. They will wear some safety gears, and also they will handle it in the proper way, in such a way that the chemicals will not leach out in the environment, and also will not affect the human health. So it is formally done. But in developing countries, majority of that recycling practices are performed by the informal sectors, not the formal sector. So here the workers are exposed to the hazards caused by the e-waste, and also environmental contamination also takes place. So that's why we are saying we'll adopt a circular economy. We'll try to use it back. So instead of producing new things, we just try to extract it. We will reduce, reuse. So this kind of circular economy, will try to reduce the generation of waste. That's important. Waste, first of all, waste generation should be reduced. If waste generation is reduced, then what happens? The waste will not be generated, and there will be no people who will be involved into this particular sector of extracting the chemicals. So I can say that how will you prevent the waste generation? That improving the product's life cycle, and even reducing the consumption, and also the waste produced from the products of resources should be tackled properly. This we call as eco-efficient product. Okay, so recycling must increase to the make the circular economy sustainable. So recycling it the formal way you have to do it. In that way, it is feeding to the circular economy also. Okay. So that way I can say the next important thing is urban mining. Urban mining means it's a technology which we use to recover valuable materials. That's something like where you do mining, no? You just go to the sand, you just mine for gold, for some iron or some coal blocks. We are doing mining. Same way, if we are doing mining from the used gadgets, that is called as urban mining. So it's a technology which is used to recover some valuable materials from the e-waste. We call this as urban mining. So, and as you can see, these are some data which we have given here. This urban mining has to be conducted, as we already know that it is good practice. Then only you can do recycling, and when you do recycling only, you'll promote circular economy. So how you'll conduct mining, that is urban mining, you have to do it in the proper closed environment along with the sustainable practices. Okay, so this way I can say that if it is left outside also without extraction, or what it happens, it damages the environment. So it has to be done in a proper conditions. Okay. Then you can see this research and data gathering. So that's main important, that the database has to be maintained related to the production details about the particular products. Okay, and the sale of the products, and how these people are using it, and if there is any resale or not, or where these products has been discarded after the end of the life cycle period. Okay, so what is happening after this the product gets discarded out. In this way, we are checking in every angle, so that careless way these products cannot be thrown outside. Okay, which makes it dangerous to the environment. Right. Fine. So with this, we can end that question. So they have asked certain conservation measures to stop this illegal way of handling the e-waste. That also we have discussed. Now, marine pollution is a growing problem in today's world. Explain. The next question is about talking about marine pollution. Okay. So, how we will explain this? First, we should know what is marine pollution. So, we can say that marine pollution is something where that chemicals also like getting inside the ocean water. Trashes also, the waste also is poured inside the ocean water. So this comes from mainly the land only. Land only. Ocean doesn't have any factories, or inside the ocean there is no people living, and they are completely growing of the waste. No such thing. But from the land, people are throwing these chemicals, sending the chemicals as well as throwing the waste into the ocean. Okay, or through certain water bodies, rivers, dumping the waste inside the rivers, and the rivers are carrying it to the ocean. So this is going to completely damage the environment. It is going to damage the health of all organisms, and even the economic structure also will get damaged. So I can say that chemical concentration, once when it enters the marine water, and or even you can take nutrients, which is adding on as a pollutant, is completely going to affect the health. Okay, our health of the biodiversity which is there in the ocean water, as well as the going to damage the environment. Okay, so this pollutions may result due to the fertilizers and industrial chemicals which are disposed inside the water bodies, and the waste which are thrown out on the land and gets dumped there nearby the ocean, and it enters the ocean body. As you can see, these are the main causes of marine pollution. As I said that one is the waste which is dumped from the land. Apart from that, you can also see that nuclear waste is there. Okay, plastics and microplastics are there. Industry and agricultural effluents, even wastewater. So as you can see that this is a diagram which you can use. You need not draw in the same pattern, but you can use this as a flow chart also. So the nuclear waste, as we all know that it is also sent into the ocean water only, and this is going to completely affect the marine biota. Okay, And also global warming, they have had this also as a pollutant only. As the rising temperatures, it increases the warming of the ocean water and leads to acidification of the ocean water. In that way, it is deteriorating the ecosystem by health. But at least you can need not give this. But instead of that, you can write nuclear waste. It's one source of marine pollution. Then plastics and microplastics. Okay, so this is the major source to say. So every year we are throwing in, lakhs of lakh tons of polluted waste, and even lakhs and lakhs of animals are getting affected because of this, right? And even industrial and agricultural effluent. Now only I discussed that how this fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides, which are used in the farm, which leach into the soil and are the river bodies, and then it comes and mixes into the marine water. Okay, same way wastewater without treating it, the effluents are discharged into the rivers or in the land, and then it enters into the ocean body. So these are some of the causes of marine pollution. What we are seeing is, so what happens when this concentration level of nitrogen, phosphorus and all in the coastal ocean, it promotes the algal bloom. So this is a major problem. So algal blooms will occur. Okay, this is toxic to the wildlife. When algal blooms appears, there will be less oxygen. The water becomes less oxygen deficient also. So it is toxic to wildlife and is harmful to humans also. So it will bring in negative effect on health, the environment. Okay, so this also affects the fishes which lives in the water, and even tourism is also getting affected. Even marine trash you take, that is waste. It includes all products, including plastics, okay, which will end up in the ocean. So how you are throwing the waste water bottles, which we are throwing, straws, one-time use plastics we are talking, no? So littering, the storm winds, and the poor waste management methods we are following in the land, all will contribute to the accumulation of this waste, and it enters into the ocean water. So mainly we told that 80% is due to land source only. How waste enter into the ocean? Through land sources. So this marine debris will include all the plastic items, like starting from I told you, shopping bags, beverages, bottles, all these, even cigarette butts, all these are included in the plastic waste. So this is a very important pollutant, which is a problematic pollutant also. How it is going to affect the marine organisms? Because when this debris move in the ocean, they like it collects it all the waste joined together, and it's like a bigger thing, bigger debris, a mass of debris, or I can say the floating mass, or the floating snow kind of plastics which is floating over the ocean water. And the animals which are there will mistake it for some food items which is floating on the ocean water. They may accidentally eat it, and they may swell and then die. So even suppose if the plastic is going to break down, no, it is going to break down a smaller microplastics only, and this is absorbed by the marine biota into the tissues. Like how we people are also observing the microplastics which is there in the environment, the marine biota also does it. So it will be, we all know that microplastics means it will be less than, 0.2 inches, that is in millimeters it will be. And so this affects the marine organisms, including the, planktons, phytoplanktons to the topmost whales are getting affected because of this plastics. Okay, so when this plastic which is taken by smaller organisms, like a small fish which has swollen a microplastic, now a big fish is coming and eating the smaller fish. So what happens? It enters the body of the larger fish also. Okay, so it will become a part of its tissue, the largest fish tissue. So this way, microplastic pollution will eventually go up in the food chain. It will not, get digested, or it will not get broken down or something, but it will travel from one level to another level. So this only we call as biomagnification, and that thus it becomes the part of human chain food. When humans take food from the marine organisms, they eat the marine organisms, it enters the human being's body also. Okay, so Also, cleanup is very, very hard. As we said that, like the plastic which floats, okay? Um, some items do not float at all. So they will go into the deep ocean. So they reach the ocean bed and that you cannot clean up, right? So, and also the plastics which they do not float will come, will be collected in a larger patches in the gyres, ocean gyres, you can see them. And that's how they gave a name. Pacific Garbage Patch is one example of such collection they have given here. So even the solutions like, biodegradable plastics, they only break down at certain temperature conditions. Okay. So this and all is a problem we are facing due to marine pollution. Now come to the next question. What is ocean acidification? Discuss about its impact on biodiversity. This is expected question because so they are asking issues related to climate problems like what is greenhouse gases and what is acid rain. So same way, what is ocean acidification can also be asked. So we made this question because of that reason. So if we want to write an answer for ocean acidification, we can say that we all know that the ocean's pH value is around 8.1. So that means it makes that ocean water as a alkaline in nature, which is basic alkaline in character. But ocean absorbs around 30% of the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, we can say. So once carbon dioxide dissolves in the ocean water, what happens? It will react with the water molecules in the, water, no. So ocean is water. So it reacts with the water molecules and forms a weak acid called carbonic acid. When it gets dissolved, the carbon dioxide will transform to a weak acid called carbonic acid. And this carbonic acid is very weak, so it gets transformed easily into two. That is, one is bicarbonate ion and another one is carbonate ion. Okay. So now if you see ocean water, there will be four forms you can find in the carbon dioxide which is dissolved in the ocean water. What are they? The dissolved carbon dioxide, that is first form. Second, weak carbonic acid. Third, the weak carbonic acid getting bifurcated into bicarbonate ions and carbonate ions. That only we have given as the symbol also. So in the marine body, all these three has to exist in a balanced way. Okay. So they nothing should be higher, nothing should be lower. All has to be in a balanced proportions. So that means the absorbed carbon dioxide to the weak carbonic acid to the bicarbonate and the carbonate ions, all should be in the balanced way. But when the level of carbon dioxide, now what is the problem? The problem is related to increasing carbon dioxide levels. As we know that because of global warming, not because of global warming also, because of increasing industrial effluents, vehicular emissions, carbon dioxide has been emitted in the larger concentrations and this is there present in the atmosphere. And when the plants which takes in carbon dioxide, these are carbon sinks. Plant is acting as a carbon sink. Ocean is acting as a carbon sink. So when ocean is acting as a carbon sink, that is taking in excess of carbon dioxide, it takes in carbon dioxide. When carbon dioxide is in excess, it takes in more carbon dioxide. So when it happens, what will the result? What will become the result? Right? That more carbon dioxide is absorbed, and because of this, the dissolved carbon dioxide level is higher, and lot of carbonic acids are now formed. We already told that the carbonic acid is a weak acid. So now there should be a balance shift which has to take place, and the carbonate ion concentration. As you can see this, the carbonate ion concentration will decrease. Carbonate ion concentration decreases because it is transformed to a bicarbonate ion. So when weak carbonic acid is produced in enormous amount, the carbonate ions concentration will decrease because it gets formed to bicarbonate. Okay, so this lead to increase in ocean pH value, that is increasing level of acidity also, causing the ocean acidification. So there are two challenges in before the ocean acidification. One is increasing acidity, as we said that the dissolved carbon dioxide is higher when it keeps on increasing, it will produce lot of carbonic acid. The carbonic acid will produce the bicarbonate and carbonate ions, but carbonate ions will further get converted to bicarbonate ions. Okay, so that means there is more number of bicarbonate ions than carbonate ions than carbonic acid and the dissolved carbon dioxide. So this will create an imbalance. That means it is making it acidity. It is turning acidity acid also, and even less availability of carbonate ion is also there. There is less availability of carbonate ions. So because carbonic acid combines with the available carbonate ions to form the bicarbonate ions. So it is completely combining with this and forming this. So in this case, this is higher, this is higher, this is higher, but this is very much lower. So acidity is also high and the carbonate ions also is very high. So all these acts as a combined factor, we can say. Now the question demands us to discuss about it's the impact of ocean acidification on biodiversity. Okay, what problem this ocean acidification is causing on biodiversity? First, we can say it is affecting or it is very dangerous to the shell builders. That means the organisms which builds the shell. Like you take any kind of sea organisms like snails, oysters, corals, which try to extract the calcium carbonate from the ocean water and build their shells. So they will be completely affected because now there is less availability of carbonate. One thing we told. Second, acidity level is also keep on increasing. So therefore, the ocean acidification, no, it is increased and less availability of carbonate ions. This will become, this will make the shell building animals. This will put the shell building animals in a dangerous situation because the available carbonate ions is bonding with the excess of hydrogen, which is resulting in a fewer carbonate ions. And this is affecting the calcifying organisms like corals, oysters, crabs you take, which are having shells in their body, lobsters, okay, sea butterfly, it's a sea snail. All this are getting affected and to build and as well as to maintain their shell. How? Because to build means they have to extract the calcium carbonate from the ocean water. They have to build new shells. That is one problem they are facing. Second thing is that since the ocean water is acidic in nature, it also dissolve the shell of the organisms which is there in the organism body. Like if you imagine a crab is a small, soft body animal, Anna. So it lives with the shell only. If the shell is gone, imagine what will happen to it. It will die, no. So that's what which is happening. So the acidity is trying to dissolve the shell of the organism, whereas the less availability of carbonate ions is not making them, not helping them to make its shell. So this is one important point which we have to discuss related to impact of the ocean acidification. Second important point is that there is a kind of algae called as coralline algae, which tries to build the shell. Okay, so which will extract from the magnesium calcite. Nah, it will extract in the form of magnesium calcite. It's also a form of calcium carbonate only. So, which is even more soluble than the regular calcite forms. So these are the organisms which are put up in the very dangerous spot. So maybe they can go extinct also if the ocean acidities keep on increasing. These organisms will not be found in the ocean water hereafter. Okay, so that makes them most vulnerable. And it also affects the non-calcifying animals, not only the shell building animals. Other animals which do not build the shell also affected because of this ocean acidification. How they are getting affected, as we already discussed, the organisms which are building their shell by extracting the calcium carbonate from the ocean water or magnesium carbonate in any form. They're extracting and building the shell is affected due to change in the concentration of the ocean water, the carbonate and the bicarbonate concentration, and increasing. This leads to increasing acidity. One hand, on the other hand, non-availability of the carbonate ions to build the shell. So this is completely affecting the calcifying animals. But non-calcifying animals, whether they will be affected because of the acidity, change in acidity level of the ocean water. Yes, there are certain fish, Okay, so they cannot predict their or even detect the predators which is going to eat them. So since the ocean water is turning acidic, okay, even there are certain other kind of fishes where their habitat is completely affected in the acidic water. Like we have given an example of clownfish. They are more sensitive to the acidity in the ocean water, so they are completely affected because of this. In certain other species, animal species, navigation is completely affected. Like a certain kind of fish species you can take. We have given like cobia fishes and all, which tries to grow a ear bone. Near the ear, they are growing a bone kind of structure. When water acidity increases, it grows. Okay, so this will affect the balance of the fish in the ocean water, and also it affects its hearing also. Okay, how it is going to hear, it is also affected. And even the energy which is spent by the marine organisms in the acidic conditions. Okay, so we'll reduce the energy which is available for the physiological processes, like you take reproduction, you growth, all will be affected because most energy is spent in fighting for its survival. Now it will go for reproduction, now it will go for growth. So this is completely going to affect the stability of a food chain. Okay, so in that way, it is going to affect the ecosystem resilience also, and economic activities also is getting affected, like fisheries, tourism, all are affected. Okay, so this global warming, along with the ocean acidification, is also going to create a major problem on the marine DMS. We call this as marine dimethyl sulfide production, which is produced, which is a kind of a trace gas. Okay, which is a kind of trace gas which we can see. It's produced in the marine area only. This trace gases will include such a certain ingredient like dimethyl sulfide. Okay, DMS will be present there inside the trace gases, which is produced by the marine organisms. So this will alter the cloud properties itself. So DMS is acting as a gaseous sulfur compound produced by the marine organisms. Okay, and it is mainly responsible for biogenic sulfur in the marine atmosphere. We know that in the sulfur cycle also it's a contribution, and it is also a major factor in the formation of clouds in such a way that it affects the climate of the particular area completely. So this marine phytoplanktons can are the one which are producing this dimethyl sulfide. We told that. So this, when it released in the atmosphere, this has it will help in the formation of cloud. Okay, but when the level of DMS decreases, what happens? The cloud formation is also affected, and this will try to, even increase the global warming only. There is no rain, so clouds are not formed, no rain, and then how come the global warming will be completely increased again? So even clouds is acting as a natural barriers. It is reflecting and observing certain, the gases which are secreted. So this and all is affected because of that DMS emissions, right? That's it. So these are some of the impact which we can discuss due to ocean acidification. What and all ocean acidification is going to bring to the marine environment as well as the biodiversity which is present in the particular area. So we have discussed from three angles. One is how it is affecting the calcifying organism. Another one we have discussed how it is going to affect the non-calcifying organisms. Calcifying means one which carries shell. Non-calcifying means which does not carry any shell, but it is still affected by the increasing acidity of the ocean water. Okay, so that way we have discussed, and now we are going to the next question. What is climate change? And what are its effects in environment and biodiversity? That can be a question like this. So first we have to define what is climate change. So as for your knowledge, I have put this particular para stating what is climate change. It refers to a long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. Then that's something called as climate change. Maybe like today we are facing this kind of temperature, as you can see everywhere in the newspaper. There are certain areas which are flooded. Previously, there will be less scanty rainfall, but now they are facing floods. And repeatedly, if rain is continuously coming, and because of this, there is no proper water management, rainwater management also. And due to this, there is urban flood and a lot of issues. So droughts in many places where previously there were no droughts, there were no scanty rainfalls, and even there is a result of high temperatures in those areas. Okay, so this can be this shift in the temperatures and weather patterns, which I told you in a particular area, can occur naturally also, or even due to certain, can occur naturally, mainly due to the sun's activity. Naturally means, and due to volcanic eruptions, they can take place. Okay, but after 1800, 1800 onwards, human activities has been the main driving force behind this climate change. Previously, it is not the case. Previously, even man existed in this form of society. So he did not have industries. He doesn't know how to produce this harmful gases, release out harmful gases and all. Even during that period, climate change was occurring. But how it was occurring? That means climate change means it's a shift in temperature patterns, weather patterns, all these things. So, but how it is taking place due to natural causes like volcanic eruptions, sun activities, all this is taking place. But the humans become the major driving force for climate change, mainly for burning the fossil fuels. Okay, like coal, oil, gases. Due to burning of all these things, we are resulting in the climate change. So now the second part of the question demands, what are the effects of environment, the climate change on the environment and the biodiversity? We know this easily. So due to climate change, we are facing a lot of problems, starting from excess of water, floods in certain areas where previously there were no water, even scarcity of water is we are facing. Now we are facing floods. Or nearby that Himalayan rivers, okay, where the glaciers is melting at an enormous rate or an alarming rate, and this due to this melting of glacier, water availability is temporarily, it is flooded. Rivers are temporarily going to get flooded, so because of this, people are affected. Second important causes or problem related to climate changes, the shifting tree line. Tree line, as you know that the tree line is keep on moving above. If you take a hill, so in the hill, where the maximum height a tree will grow, that is called as tree line. So now what happens? The tree line is moving above and above and above because the snow is receding, continuously receding. So we call this as greening of the Himalayas or greening of the Alpines. We may think it's good, but it's bad because the snow is gone and in that area trees are appearing. This greening and browning of Alpine region is taking place. It is also due to climate change only. Third important is declining in the snowfall. And not only rain patterns, not only rain is affected, not only the receding glaciers is a problem, but snowfall which is occurring in certain areas is also declined. So, so what happens? This will not create any glaciers, or this will not create any permafrost region over the period. Not now, over the period. So this may be an impact of climate change only. Because of this, since the complete conditions, environment conditions of the places changed or altered, the biodiversity is also in the decline. Okay, and sometimes it is also becoming extinct, even without our knowledge. Even without coming to our knowledge, they get extinct. We doesn't know that this kind of species existed there before. Okay, so but before our acknowledgement, it is going vanished. One kind of vanishment. Second, we know it, but we fail to protect it. Because of climate change, they are getting affected due to altering climatic conditions of the local area. This way, the indigenous community get affected. Okay, and otherwise, if they are not getting extinction, they are going to get affected genetically. The genes are getting affected, getting altered, and because of this, they are facing a lot of problems. And even the behavioral patterns is completely changed. Previously, the animals which is residing in the particular area will not continue residing there. So it will migrate from that place to another places. Okay, so the behavioral changes. And even the habitat is lost for various kind of organisms. Habitat loss is a major issue. You take a snow leopard which is residing in the snow in Himalayas. So when the snow completely go away, where this organism will go, whether it adapt themselves, they will try to migrate, no? So they cannot live or survive in that kind of situation. In the harsh climate, they will try to migrate or they will adapt in certain ways. So habitat loss is a major problem which we are facing in the climate change, due to climate change. Even the range shifts, we said. So previously it might be present in the entire ranges of Western Ghats, but now in small pockets in certain national parks or wildlife sanctuaries, they will be present there. Our biosphere, so you can find these kind of organisms. That's why we call this as range shift. Then endemic species will definitely be gone. Endemic species, which means that species which belong to that particular area only. So if there is change or alter in the particular environment, in the particular area, then the endemic species are the one to get first affected. And this will lead to the spread of invasive species because they will be able to survive in any condition. Once the endemic and indigenous species are gone, the invasive species will completely spread over the area. Okay, and new species will start appear in that area, which was not originally present in that area. Originally present are the indigenous community. We cannot find an indigenous community because of climate change, but like new species will start appear in the particular area. So all these are some of impacts of climate change we are facing in today's world. So with this, we will end the question discussion of the part 3. We have started the climate change, and maybe in the next classes, we'll be discussing the protection measures related to climate change and other pollution related issues, everything. So,